not going to talk about those Bible verses calling homosexuality a sin. We're not going to have that conversation because we're beyond that conversation. If we have that conversation, that's really what starts all these emotions are popping up everywhere on both sides, and people get very, very combative. But rather, let's ask the question for ourselves and to one another, how can we be together better rather than apart? How can my experience help you and your experience help me? And we walk with each other with our own individual experience, with our own individual context, but we are together. I think that's what the Christian and LGBTQ community is being wholly caught up on, is seeing the sinner in both parties. But there's that Bible verse that says along the lines of, who are you to pick the speck out of somebody else's eye when you have a log sticking out of your own? And then also Jesus says, no sin is greater than the other. So let's not focus on sin anymore, because that's when you focus on sin, that's focusing on darkness. And I think that's what is evil, and that's what Satan likes, is when people focus on darkness, when people focus on the dividing factors between each other, and it causes chaos and it causes corruption of the heart. Rather, if we can see beyond a question of is it a sin or not, and we can just be, period. We can just be together and be one in this movement through life, in this journey, in this adventure and sojourning.
Along the lines of religion, you are Catholic. In my experience, I've known many people who've left the Catholic Church because of the Catholic Church's stances on homosexuality and some of the things that have been said in the past. The new Pope seems to be working to change that with a more open perspective. How do you stay Catholic, or why do you stay when statements are being made that directly go against or are a judgment on a major aspect of your identity?
I get this question a lot, and I still come back to this amazing experience growing up where I was in Italy for a New Year's Mass with a school group. I was one of two Catholics in this school group. I mean, the Mass obviously was all in Italian, but my friend Aaron and I were able to follow along and know exactly where we were in the Mass and what was being said and what was being done with these 1,000 other people who were attending Mass. It was just so profound to me that there is this foundational link that transcends cultures and transcends language barriers. Spirituality is higher than our own individual experience. It is a connector between all of us globally. And however that's celebrated, be joyful of the fact that it is celebrated. If that spirituality is seeking to harm, then I don't necessarily believe that's not healthy, and that's not God's goodness and God's love. If the spirituality is to connect people, make people grow outside of themselves, then celebrate that fact. And so I see it, I can see that a lot in the Catholic Church throughout the years, past experiences that I have been through. Yes, there is dogma within the church, but that spirituality or those aspects of the Catholic Church, how do I put it, aren't necessarily my truths. And also I see that the Catholic Church is man-made, so it can be fallible. So it's not to put me above the Catholic Church and say, oh, I know better than the church itself. No, it is to humbly refrain from aspects within the church that I know to be harmful, but to also celebrate aspects within the church that are amazing to individuals throughout the world. And I think that's the common denominator.
Are there experiences that you have had within the church that have helped to reinforce this understanding for you? And sort of the other side of the coin, are there experiences within the church that have made you question your decision to stay because of the way you had been treated based on your gay identity?
Yes, I've been very discriminated against from people representing the Catholic Church, and it was extremely trying, and reconciliation took a long time, but I would rather be within the church and be a movement and shaker within the church than be outside of the church trying to talk back into the door, because then I would just be another outside critic. I'd rather be within the church and celebrate within the church, and let's move together with our diversity and grow together. And how can we be diverse and yet have common value and common ground? I have seen, obviously, if I've only experienced negative experiences in the church, that I would still be proud to say that I am a Catholic. I mean, it was prayer that led me to such a place of peace and solidarity within my own self that led me to come out and really embrace my own individualism and own experience outside of myself. And then seeing leaders within the church celebrate equality and respect and dignity for all persons over dogma. That's what I've seen. That's what I've experienced. And that's what keeps me so alive. We hear all the time about the religious right shutting down movements, shutting down speakers, canceling events, throwing all this hate speech around and being very, very angry at people within their own church, at other Catholics. It's very sad. It's very disheartening. But there are a couple of things to remember. The extreme is always the loudest on all ends of the spectrum. The extreme are the minority, but they also are the loudest. And then we are the Catholic Church. Catholic means universal. We are here as a body of 1 billion throughout this world, individuals. So, of course, everybody's experience would be different, and there would be an amazing, inconceivable spectrum, wide spectrum of beliefs, ideologies, spiritualities. But let's, again, hold together and celebrate that diversity and that all those journeys with one common ground of the church, and holding above all else the respect we have for sharing in the body and blood rather than our own bias.
The church is one institution within your life. You mentioned your school being very conservative. You mentioned Marquette being helpful in that aspect. But then family is a huge aspect of your life. Your family and friends and roots, were they supportive when you first started openly identifying as gay?
No, not at all. I mean, it is a journey. It is a learning curve. It is something that we all have to, again, navigate together. Families like to ostracize a person, or there are stories that families ostracize their LGBTQ son or daughter. And that's just sad, because how are we supposed to learn and grow as a human race if we are only caught up in our absolute microcosm of experience and understanding? But relationships are a two-way street, and respect goes both ways. So yes, respect their journey to know you better. And I'm talking about family and friends. Respect their journey to know you and understand you. They may be coming from a place of unacceptance or misjudgment. It is hurtful. It is hard a lot of times, and it is hard for both sides. Open communication, being respectful in their knowledge and their trying to understand, and them being respectful towards you is the most important, and if you're going to grow together. Now, that's not to say some relationships aren't the most healthy and you should always keep on trying. No, sometimes cutting off is necessary for both parties. because it can get emotionally and or physically harmful. And that's when we need to take a step back and as individual human beings and reflect, what is family? Family is not necessarily the biological definition. I mean, my family, I have many families. Yes, I have my biological family, but I have a family of friends that are absolutely beautiful. I have and surrounding myself with friends who make me a better person and who I can go to with full honesty, authenticity, and trust. That's beautiful, and that's what people really should seek and find and be at peace with. There's always a community out there of love and respect and again, authenticity that will welcome any individual with open arms. But I don't want people to feel like if they come across a relationship that may feel that that other person is judgmental or disrespectful, I don't want them to instantly go to running away. But rather, the first instinct is, how can we grow together?
What are things that we do that are hurtful? So if I am someone who encounters someone who falls along the LGBTQI spectrum, what are things I may do that are hurtful that I don't realize are hurtful?
Well, the first understanding that I have is seeing somebody for only that identity, and that's it, and not seeing the whole person. We are multifaceted people. I mean, I am a gay Catholic man in Phnom Penh, Cambodia, doing development work. I am an Eagle Scout. I am a scuba diver. I'm a skier, singer, and actor. I have a passion for Netflix. But yeah, I mean, I have a lot of interests in a huge diversity of aspects to my life that make me, James, who I am. And that's, I feel like, is the number one thing to when somebody is encountering, and this goes beyond just sexual orientation or gender identity, it goes beyond to race, to ethnicity, to religion, to dietary preferences, is see the individual person and see the whole person and get to know that whole person rather than putting a label onto them and walking away, because both parties end up missing out.
Are there any examples that come to your mind, things that someone had said to you that maybe they were trying to be supportive and helpful, but because they didn't fully understand, it was actually hurtful?
The first thought that comes to my mind is when I was coming out, I got a lot of, oh, you can take me shopping. I guess it's not necessarily hurtful whatsoever. But again, a very large stereotype. I do like shopping. I like looking good in clothes and fashion and stuff like that. But it was such a profound stereotype. And I got it over and over again. So they thought they were being accepting, but rather it was just putting me into a box, putting me into a stereotype. Going back to, I guess, the coming out question, I stopped necessarily coming out, if you will. I've done that, I did it, and I had a coming out process. But now it's more of, it's just a natural telling the story of my life, just the same as a straight person would talk about their wife or their family or their boyfriend or girlfriend. Yeah, I don't feel the need to come out, but rather, this is me and my boyfriend's there. He's there, and I introduce him as such. It's not, let me sit you down and let's have a conversation about that I'm a gay man. Let's integrate this aspect of my life just the same as I would integrate my experiences backpacking. Does that make sense?
This idea you're talking about of having to come out is something that I've thought about since high school. The fact that there seems to be this belief that if you are gay, you must come out and sort of identify your sexuality for others to know and make that statement. Whereas if you're straight, there's not necessarily an understanding or belief that you have to have a coming out party because you're part of the majority. Do you feel that in terms of sexuality, should everyone have to come out? Should no one have to come out? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think it's important to, and it's because it is a minority, because there are societies around the world where it is taboo in the lightest and in the absolute most gravest sense of that word to